Hey, YouTube community. Hi, it's Hannah. I had an idea the other night that just came to me that I've never heard anyone say it. It's a framing device that is new to me, and it just came, and it was like beauty is a sport for women. And I've been thinking about it ever since, and I thought, well, I wonder what I would say if I turned on a camera. Um, because I've definitely thought about how fraught the terrain of beauty is for women these days. Um, and I've definitely lived my own experience with um, being with boyfriends who, I guess, in some sense, got with me because they liked the way I looked, among other things, and then getting like crunched on really, really hard about how I'm presenting myself. And that they don't want me presenting myself in a way that's like drawing the attention of any other males. And that's like frustrating because I've never been shy about saying like, you should have just gotten an ugly girlfriend. And I'm not saying I'm the prettiest girlfriend, but that would just like solve all the problems right there. And then it gets to be this like huge power struggle. You know what I mean? A huge power struggle. And it's a gray zone. I mean, I guess if you're like all the way over in really, really like soliciting attention based on your, like really skimpy attire, like really playing that card hard, then again, I mean, if I was that person, I don't think I am. I've been talked to as if I am this person in relationships, then still that kind of card that you can play that's like, I was this way when you met, like, I feel like if you're this way when you met someone, then they kind of got to work it out or whatever. But I don't think that for me that's the case. But I'm not trying to like exclude. I'm not trying to, that's way too subjective of a place. Okay. Based on dudes that I've talked to, the gym is a hotbed for this kind of like critique of how women dress, how much skin they're showing, how evocative, how provocative that might be. I've definitely found myself in the camp where I'm like, I can see your whole entire like labia like in that thing. Like, it's not that I don't get it, and then you find yourself somewhere kind of in the middle, and still being sort of like having a power struggle with someone as if you should be massively different from the way that you were when you literally met them at the gym or whatever. So that's hard. Also, sometimes I don't think that men understand like how stretchy clothes works for us with sizing and women's fashion, and like our bodies being all so different. And it's not just like, well, I'm a 32, 40, whatever, people like men's, kind of measurements in fashion are so much more straightforward, and ours is so much more like, I don't know, like, what time of the month am I, like, can I have some stuff I can expand into? We can lose and gain like up to like 15 pounds even, in our cycle and stuff like that, so you get into that. And then and so, like, before I move over to the other side, because there is another side, there's also, let me just like build this up a little bit more. There's also the like the alt-right men's movement, and I would consider myself alt-right, or apparently I would be considered alt-right, okay, based on not being like libtard left, because there's like disappearing middle zone or whatever. So when I say the alt-right men, I'm not making some kind of like crazy, I'm not casting aspersions, all right? But there's a big resurgence in that community of valuing traditional femininity, which I'm like, yay, that's amazing. I feel like that's what I've always been trying to go for, kind of, except, okay, now I'm not traditionally feminine enough. Like, traditional femininity, trad wives, trad girlfriends, very modest clothing, very like traditional women's roles, like no tattoos, like no body count, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So you got that. And you know, you always have to ask, like alt-right bro is sort of like, trying to get trad wife girl. And what is, do you have trad husband man shit to offer? Like, do you have like a ranch, you know, and like cattle and like a tractor and like a going operation, and you know, she can just be a homemaker? I mean, I have a really close friend who is finally, thankfully, like exited like a 20+ year long marriage, and like her husband expected her to be a trad wife, but also to hold down a full-time job, which she did for the entirety of the marriage, and to be the sole caretaker of the child. So it's like, do you, like, if you want trad wife shit, you got to do trad husband stuff, you know? Like, everybody everybody wants a trad wife till it's time to be a trad husband. So, you know, you got that pressure over there. Then you got, for us women, there's like this wild like feminism thing where wearing high heels, doing your hair, wearing makeup, wearing feminine clothing, is all that you're sexually signaling, and you're appealing to the patriarchy, and you're pandering to the patriarchy. And there's some amazing, you know, input from Teal Swan, who's like one of my favorite influencers on YouTube. That's just, there's a video of hers where she's kind of like, a gaslight is bad for everybody. Like, whether the thing is good or bad, it's better interpersonally or societally. It's better for everyone to just, like, first of all, admit what's true. Just admit what is true, and then deal with that. You know, if everybody's operating in a gaslight, it's bad for everybody. So the kind of like cultural, societal gaslight in the last couple decades, due to the influence of feminism, has been that any expectation, any like sort of like value judgment of like women's worth in men's lives, or just generally speaking, based on their appearance, is just old dogma. You know, that's just old stuff, and we don't need that anymore. And like, we're past that, you know, or we should be past that. Anyone who's not past it and is wearing high heels or attractive clothing or attractive makeup or attractive hair and presenting themselves in a feminine manner is this like holdout that's like literally holding all the other women back. To the extent that you present yourself in a feminine manner, you're undermining all women everywhere. Okay? Because we just, that's old dogma, and we're here now where we all got to admit that like looks don't matter. Okay, so do you see how crazy this is? So there's that over there, and then there's this over here that's like, if you ever even like fucked a dude, or have a single tattoo, or like wear some booty shorts to the gym, or like have some fake lashes, or like wear some makeup, then you're one of these modern commodified like fem bot sluts, you know. And I probably wouldn't even like think about this too hard, because I was just, ever since I was a little girl, I just like to put on like 3 different dresses a day and twirl around for my parents. And I was just like super massively feminine. It kind of breaks my heart when I hear about super libtard parents that are trying to raise their kids like a-gendered or whatever, because I mean, we lived in like all different places. My dad was in the oil field. We lived without utilities. We lived in a tent in Wyoming. We lived in a school bus. We lived in like an underground house in Oklahoma. We didn't have TV. I mean, my mom was happy to wear like burlap sacks. She didn't give a fuck. She happened to be a very beautiful woman, but like, she had totally walked away from this whole life where she had been a debutante and stuff like that. She was like very much in rejection of the kind of like fancy woman stuff, you know. And I don't know, man, ever since I was like incarnated into this body, I wanted to do like fancy girl stuff and like twirl around in dresses, which my dresses were from Goodwill necessarily. I mean, I wasn't socialized this way. It's just, I'm a girl. Like, I came in this way. And like vanity and things being pretty and things being soft and things being fluffy and things being sparkly, and things being pink. Like, I was just gay for it. You know what I mean? Because I'm straight for it. But like, so I kind of came in really strong that way. I'm not saying every girl does. There's certainly like tomboys, I guess, and stuff out there. But, so maybe I wouldn't even have like kind of grappled with this whole like vanity, women's beauty question so much if I hadn't just kind of been. But then, interestingly enough, for me, like professionally speaking, for different reasons than you might not expect, because I've been trying to figure out how to sort of like make enough income, but I'll carve out enough time to have like a creative, artistic life. That's been the prominent goal for me. That's led me into the trades and into the blue collar and into the workforce there, and to being like a commercial truck driver for most of my career. And, I've done other things, but like, doing radically like not girly things for work, in order to subsidize my lifestyle otherwise, which is creative, which is artistic, which is expressive, which is things like this, which is having just literally time to myself, which I feel like nobody talks about that. Like just have some time to your fucking self, to just like be with yourself, like you gotta figure out how to pay for that too, and then on top of it, being like quite a girly girl in terms of my sort of like way that I feel most comfortable presenting myself. I mean, if I don't have to be wearing like flame retardant coveralls for work, then I'm going to be in something like this, so I think maybe I would just be the way that I am, but I might not have like grappled with all of this hard, if not for being really, really like crunched on by significant others in the past, that I was the way I was when I met them. And then they pretty much like leaned on me super hard to strip myself of my, my vanities, because other men are noticing me, which is like a wild thing. I think this gets into some like beta male ass territory, where you either have the confidence and the security to like date a beautiful woman, and to notice that other men are looking at her, and to take that as a compliment in your choice of partner, or somehow that just like eats them alive, and they need to just like squeeze you, to like you should just be wearing like a sackcloth and like have like charcoal all over your face or something, in order to dispel the otherwise male attention, so that they don't have to deal with it emotionally, and you try to make compromises in relationships, and then you're just like, one day you're standing at a truck stop at the Flying J in Idaho being told that your like dress is transparent and it's not, and like the like person you're with has like a total fucking meltdown, and you're like, how did I get here? So again, you've got like, just I actually love topics and subjects that are super fucking problematic, because you know that there's some kind of like hotbed, and there's some kind of like kernel of truth there, not just a kernel of truth for one person, but a kernel of truth for like a lot of different kinds of people. So, again, I'm like, I was born in 76, I'm 49. I feel like this crazy, like, I know you can't tell, but I have a lot of tattoos, and I've had relationships, and you know what? I've even slept with people. Oh my God, like, I'm not a virgin. Like, I'm not just like here, like churning milk being a virgin. Like, there's like people that I've been with, and so kind of on this like resurgence, which I think like is healthy in many ways, that's kind of like looking for more traditional gendered values. It's sort of like a pushback against, the absolute like insanity of anybody can be any gender and all that, so it's sort of like the pendulum swinging the other way. So you get men, whether they have their shit set up or not, to be some kind of trad husband, but they're looking for a trad wife. I think I don't think I'm in the crosshairs for that. Like, I think I'm safe, but, And then on the other side, you have the feminists that are like, you're pandering to the patriarchy, like, fuck you with those eyelashes, you know, or whatever. And I already did a whole video on my sort of like issues. There's many things that, well, there's really one big thing that the feminists have to say that I'm like, that's a good point. You know, the demonetization of women's like traditional labor in a broken money economy. But otherwise, I'm like, you guys are such a fucking pain in the ass, you know? Like, what business is it? Like, whatever, like, if my choice of how I put myself together is undermining all women, then fuck all women, and maybe they can just be undermined. Like, if what I want to do as a sovereign individual, like, undermines all women, you know what I'm saying? That's like cult-like behavior. That's like a fucking cult. So that's a cult. This is a cult, you know? And then, in the meantime, I'm sorry, like, most women want to, like, we want to be pretty, and we, like, put a lot of our time and energy and attention into that. And is it to attract a particular mate? I think it is, you know, but then when we attract that mate, do we stop doing it and wear a sackcloth and put like smear our faces with charcoal? No, we don't. That would be retarded. Also, it would be like, I mean, I think one of the most wonderful things that you can do is kind of be, you know, like an asset, you know? Like, I would hope that a man would be an asset to me, and I would hope that I would be an asset to him. I mean, can you imagine going to a dinner party and everybody being like, it's so nice to meet your sackcloth, like, ugly charcoal face wife. Like, what an amazing partner you chose there. Like, that's, so I guess a lot of this possibly comes down to security issues, like on the part of men that like pursue pretty women and then like can't deal with any other man looking at her. And then also you're undermining all women if you look pretty or put yourself together, you know? So I'm sorry to like spend so much time with that, but like this is like a wild environment to just be like, what the fuck am I gonna wear today and how do I put myself together? And like the rhetoric of that, like how wildly that can be like read or misread to the point that it can be interpreted that if you put yourself together, you are out there trying to solicit men, you know, like it's just so much. So in that background and context, when this thought came to me the other night, like beauty is a sport for women, I was like, oh, that kind of is like a really good framing device, because like men are really into sports. There's some women that are really into sports too. But it's kind of like sports, like contests of skill and strength and accuracy and marksmanship and all that. For men, I think that's such a healthy thing. It's such a healthy expression, because it's like men in a camaraderie with other men practicing offensive or defensive skills and coordination and strength and teamwork, in a way that it's like so obvious how that could tie back to something that is like primordial and like foundational for men in terms of doing what men have always done, which is the role of men, which is to advance the project of human civilization and to protect women and children. So it makes sense that the sort of recreational practice of all those multifaceted skills would be sports. They're sports, you know, and men love them. The thing that I think is kind of a psyop is the abdication of one's personal involvement in athleticism and sports in favor of the worship of like major sporting figures and major sporting events, like the opiate of the masses, you know, where, I mean, I think that every town and every community and every region should have like a yearly Olympics or every 4 years Olympics. Like this, I mean, if you've grown up in the same kind of time that I have, like this like worship of the arena gladiators, you know, of the NFL or whatever, it's just as weird to me as the worship of pop stars and celebrities who may be famous for something, or they may be famous just for being famous, and then they're on the tabloids and they're in the magazines and stuff like that, and people like live for this shit. Like they live for it. I think, I mean, I don't know, when I've had all kinds of different coworkers and stuff like that, and when they I had coworkers that like really follow what the stars are doing. And I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't actually know people like you existed. Like that's what you do with your time. Like you follow what the stars are doing. That's like loco, dude. And I feel like the same way about being so hyper obsessed with major sporting events. Like I get that it's an amazing display of like, you know, the highest echelon of skill that the system can harvest and promote. But again, to the extent that like an individual, like there's like famous musicians and songwriters that I'm like wild about, you know. Am I also engaged in my own process with songwriting and like creative composition and artistic output? Yeah. So like I appreciate them because they're like showing like what can be done in this kind of like venue and like what can be done, the kinds of like dimensions that can be manipulated. So to be sort of super into a sports star for men, and to be also actively involved in like something that is the equivalent, like on your own level, to me seems kind of healthy because you're just like, that's a mentorship, you know? But to completely on your own, like to just be this like armchair quarterback dude who's like abdicated personal direct involvement in a sport, but to like completely worship the gods of the arena, to me is weird. I'm sorry. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. It seems like a waste of your time. It seems like a waste of your energy. Like, why aren't you doing something for yourself? You know, again, back to like, why don't we have local and regional Olympics and things like that? Contests of skill, contests of strength, contests of accuracy, contests of coordination for men and women, you know? But okay, back over to the other woman's, the woman's side. If we were to sort of experiment with the idea of like beauty being a sport for women, if sports are sports for men that kind of like call back to a certain, you know, set of skills that have been called upon many times in history and maybe called upon again, you know, to advance the project of civilization and to protect women and children, like the whole man thing, then I think beauty could kind of be seen as the sort of like central project of women and the sort of central strategy of women and the central indicator of like where you stand in the pecking order for women. And so exploring beauty, experimenting with beauty, becomes the way that we like plug into that sort of like primal and primordial aspect of ourselves that, like Teal Swan says, we're all in this kind of like cultural gaslight where we're none of us are supposed to admit that like beauty is sort of like a foundational metric of a woman's sort of like value or worth, right? I mean, it sounds harsh, like it does sound fucked up. It does sound fucked up, you know, because it's kind of like men's height. Like it's just the luck of the draw. Like there's beauty and then there's not beauty. There's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of things you can do. There's like a lot of things you can't do, you know, you kind of like play the hand that you're dealt. But backing off from all that, it's like what I'm saying is that in these kinds of like circumstances, like for me personally, where I've been like super, super crunched on by men and they're like, well, you know, you've got me now. So why are you doing all this? Are you trying to get somebody else? And it's like, I think that this is just a really, really strong reflex for us that pertains back to our sort of like roots and like what we know to be like foundational important as women. And it's fun for us, just like sports are fun for men. Like for men, like fighting for your life, like eyeball to eyeball with some dude who's trying to like knife you in the guts. Like, is that fun? No, it's not. But like football, is that fun? Yeah, it is, you know? So for us, like, being, you know, having everything depend on how high quality of a male we can attract to be our sort of like protector and sponsor in this life, which has been the case for a lot of history. Is that fun? Kind of like, that's stressful and that sucks, but like practicing beauty, you know, expressing beauty, like expressing our personal style, we love it. I'm sorry, we love it. We love it. And we come in, many of us, like I did, twirling around in my little Goodwill dresses, just loving it. There was no TV. And I wasn't socialized to do this. It just like comes in for us really strong, you know? So, I think a lot of things about women will just always be misunderstood, and like, because they're either demonized or they're valorized, right? Like, probably the same thing for men. Like, I mean, anytime you talk about women and men, it's like literally anything you say, there's so many caveats to it that there's almost like no point saying it. But for me, I don't know. It's just like a framing device that I'm going to sit with that actually helps me make more sense of the terrain. And I don't feel like I have like a big strong like bam like conclusion for you on this. It's just like literally this is an explorative thought process for me, that beauty is a sport for women. So having like answered 0 questions, but kind of created like a terrain as I've experienced it, that's a thought. Tell me what you think. If I think of something better later on, I'll make an amendment, but there we go. Okay. Hope you have a good night.